Hey guys, tonight we begin with the damp, sawdust-filled and incredibly itchy world of Victorian golf. We are going back to St Andrews, Scotland in the 1860s. Not to win championships, and not to sip whiskey in a clubhouse with velvet chairs. No, tonight you are going to work. You are an apprentice to the legend himself, old Tom Morris. But as you'll soon find out, being close to greatness mostly just smells like burnt rubber and wet wool. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you have just woken up in St Andrews. It is roughly 1867, though you don't really care about the year because your immediate problem is the temperature. It is dark, it is arguably morning, and the air inside your room is so cold it feels like a physical weight pressing down on your chest. You are lying on a mattress that is essentially a sack of straw that has slowly compressed over the years into a hard, lumpy slab. There is no central heating, there is no double glazing, there is only a stone wall that radiates a deep prehistoric chill, and a small window that rattles every time the North Sea wind decides to slap the side of the building. You stay under your blanket for a moment longer. It's a rough wool blanket, heavy and slightly oily to the touch, smelling faintly of the sheep it came from, and the dampness it has absorbed from the room. You can see your breath in the air, little puffs of white fog that vanish into the gloom. The silence of the room is heavy, broken only by the distant rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the rocks down at the bay, and the occasional scream of a seagull that sounds like it's having a worse morning than you are. Getting out of bed in the 19th century isn't just a movement. It's an act of courage. You throw the covers off and the cold hits you like a bucket of water. You scramble to the wash basin in the corner. The water in the pitcher has a thin film of ice on top of it. You break it with your knuckle, splash the freezing liquid on your face to shock yourself into consciousness, and then immediately regret it. There is no hot shower waiting for you. There is no fresh towel fluffy from the dryer. There is just a rag that is permanently damp and smells like mildew. Now you have to get dressed. If you think modern golf clothes are restrictive, you have no idea. In the 1860s, comfort was a concept that hadn't really been invented yet, especially for the working class. You put on your undergarments, which are linen and loose, but somehow still manage to bunch up in all the wrong places. Then comes the shirt, stiff and starch-collared, which chafes against your neck. But the real star of the show is the tweed. You pull on your trousers. They are made of thick, heavy, scratchy wool. They don't stretch, they don't breathe. They just exist to protect you from the gorse bushes and the wind, and in return, they act like a cheese grater against your legs. You pull on a waistcoat, then a heavy jacket. By the time you are fully dressed, you're wearing about 15 pounds of fabric. You feel less like an athlete and more like upholstered furniture. You sit on the edge of the bed to lace up your boots. These aren't lightweight sneakers with arch support. These are hobnail, boot-stiff leather monstrosities with iron studs hammered into the soles for grip. They are cold, hard, and when you stomp your foot on the wooden floorboards, it sounds like a gunshot. You grab your cap, a flat woolen thing that you will likely not take off for the next 14 hours, and you head out the door. Stepping out onto the streets of St Andrews at dawn is an atmospheric experience, which is a polite way of saying it's bleak, grey, and smells intense. The town is known as the Old Grey Toon for a reason. Everything is grey. The cobblestones are grey, the buildings are grey sandstone, the sky is a shifting ceiling of grey clouds, and the sea is a darker, angrier grey. As you walk down North Street towards the links, the air is thick with a mixture of smells that your modern nose would find assaulting. There is the sharp, salty tang of the sea, obviously, but mixed with it is the dense, choking smell of coal smoke pouring out of hundreds of chimneys. It hangs low in the streets, stinging your eyes. Underneath that, the smell of fish gutted, salted, or rotting from the harbour, and the unavoidable earthy stench of horse manure that litters the cobblestones. There is no sanitation department sweeping the streets before you wake up. You have to watch where you step. The wind here is constant. It doesn't just blow, it pushes. It finds every gap in your layers of tweed and bites at your skin. You tuck your chin into your collar, hands shoved deep into your pockets, listening to the clatter of your iron-studded boots echoing off the stone walls. You pass the ruins of the cathedral, standing like a broken skeleton against the gloomy sky. It's a reminder that things here are old, broken, and enduring, much like the back pain you're already developing. You arrive at the shop, old Tom Morris's shop. It sits right there, overlooking the 18th green of the old course. To the world of the future, this is sacred ground. To you, it's just work. You push open the door and the bell jingles, a sharp, cheerful sound that contrasts with the gruff reality inside. The warmth hits you first. A coal fire is already roaring in the grate, casting flickering orange light against the walls lined with hickory shafts and leather grips. But the smell is what defines your life now. It is a thick, pungent cocktail of three things: stale pipe tobacco, wood shavings, and the unmistakable acrid scent of hot gutta-percha. Old Tom is already there. In paintings, he looks like a wise, grandfatherly sage. In reality, at this hour, he is just a hard-working Scotsman with a majestic white beard that is likely trapping crumbs from his breakfast. He nods at you. He doesn't ask how you slept. He doesn't ask about your dreams. He points to the bench. "Kettle's boiling," he grunts. Your first task of the day is making balls. This is not a factory process with machines and conveyor belts. This is you, a pot of boiling water, and a lump of dried sap from a Malaysian tree. The gutty ball revolutionised golf because it was cheaper than the old featheries, but making them is a tedious, hot and sticky nightmare. You take a slab of the gutta-percha. It's hard and brown like a fossilised chocolate bar. You drop it into the boiling water. You watch it. You wait. The steam rises up and hits you in the face, softening the wax on your moustache. When the material is soft, like violent putty, you fish it out with a pair of tongs. Now comes the speed. You have to roll it in your hands, which you have dusted with chalk so it doesn't stick to your skin and burn you, to get it roughly spherical. It's hot, burns your palms through the calluses. Then you jam it into an iron mould. This is a heavy hinged metal device that looks like a torture instrument for small fruit. You clamp it shut and crank down the vice screw. You have to put your back into it. The mould has a pattern engraved inside, usually lines or bramble patterns, because smooth balls don't fly straight. You crank it until your muscles strain, squeezing the excess gutta-percha out of the sides like rubbery worms. Then you drop the whole hot iron mould into a bucket of cold water. Hiss. You do this again and again and again. The repetition is hypnotic. Boil, roll, burn, press, crank, hiss. Old Tom is at the other bench working on a club. The sound of his workshop is a rhythmic ASMR of a 19th century craftsmanship. Scrape, 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 scrape. He is using a block plane on a shaft of hickory wood. He works with a terrifying precision. He doesn't measure with a micrometer. He measures with his hands and his eyes. He runs his thumb down the wood, feeling for imperfections you couldn't see with a microscope. The floor is covered in curly shavings of wood, soft and blonde, smelling of sweet timber. They cling to your wool trousers. They get in your boots. Later you will have to sweep them up, but for now they provide a soft cushioning against the stone floor. Once the balls are cool, you take them out of the moulds. They aren't finished. They have a seam of excess rubber around the middle where the mould halves met. You have to take a sharp knife and carefully, painstakingly trim off that flash without slicing into the ball itself or your thumb. Then you set them on a rack to cure. They need to be painted white, with lead-based paint, of course, because safety is for the future. But that's a job for later. The shop is quiet, save for the scraping of wood and the crackle of the fire. Occasionally the door opens and a gust of freezing wind blows in, bringing with it a customer. Usually it's a gentleman. You can tell by the clothes' finer wool, less patched, cleaner boots. They come in to complain about a cracked shaft or to buy a half-dozen new gutties. Old Tom handles them with a deferential but firm manner. He is a servant of the club, yes, but he is also the keeper of the game. If a lord complains that his club is crooked, Tom might gently suggest that perhaps it is the lord's swing that is crooked, not the wood. He says it so politely, with that thick Scottish brogue, that the insult sounds like advice. You stand in the background, rubbing linseed oil into a club head until the beechwood glows like dark honey. Your hands are stained, greasy, and a smell of turpentine. The cold from the morning has left your bones, replaced by the dull ache of repetitive labour. You look out the shop window. The fog is lifting slightly off the links. You can see the first fairway. A rugged, uneven stretch of land that looks less like a sports field and more like a goat pasture, mostly because it is a goat pasture. "Grab the sand," Tom says, breaking your trance. "We're going out." You don't argue. You wipe your hands on a rag that is dirtier than your hands are. You grab a heavy bucket of wet sand and a few tools that look like they belong in a garden shed. It's time for the second part of your day. The shop was the warm part. Now, you have to face the elements. You step back out into the wind. It feels colder now that you've been inside. The skies are flat, imposing white. The sea is roaring. You follow old Tom across the cobblestones and onto the grass. This isn't just a walk. This is the commute to the most famous office on earth. But as your boots sink into the damp, sandy turf, you aren't thinking about history. You're just hoping the wind doesn't blow your hat off into a gorse bush. As you trudge deeper onto the links, the town of St. Andrews begins to recede behind you, fading into the grey mist like a memory you aren't quite sure you actually had. You are now entering the domain of the old course, but if you are picturing the lush, manicured emerald carpets of modern television golf, you need to delete that image from your brain immediately. What lies before you looks less like a sporting venue and more like a rugged, neglected strip of coastal wasteland that humanity has tentatively agreed to walk upon. The ground beneath your hobnail boots is uneven, hard and sandy. There are no cart paths here, there are no paved walkways. There is just the earth, compacted by centuries of Scottish weather and the hooves of livestock. The grass is not a uniform species engineered in a laboratory to withstand drought. It is a chaotic mix of fescue, bent grass and whatever weeds have managed to survive the salt spray. It is patchy. It is brown in places, yellow in others, and a dark, brooding green in the hollows where the water gathers. Old Tom walks with a stride that defies his age. He moves with the efficiency of a man who has walked this specific stretch of land every day for decades. He doesn't look down at his feet. He knows where every hummock, every rabbit hole and every hidden ridge is located. You, on the other hand, are stumbling. The terrain is deceptive. It looks flat from a distance, but up close, it is an endless series of micro dunes and depressions. Your heavy boots catch on tufts of coarse marram grass. Your ankles roll on hidden stones. You are carrying the heavy wooden bucket of wet sand, and the thin metal handle is already digging into your palm, cutting off the circulation to your frozen fingers. The wind out here is different than it was in the town. In the streets it was gusty and swirling. Here, on the open links, it is a constant physical force. It comes off the North Sea, travelling hundreds of miles with absolutely nothing to stop it until it hits your face. It makes your eyes water constantly. It pushes against your chest, making every step feel like you are walking through invisible molasses. It is loud, a relentless roaring in your ears that makes conversation impossible, which is fine because old Tom isn't talking anyway. Your first job of the morning is not to mow the greens. Mowers exist in the 1860s, but they are heavy, cast-iron beasts drawn by horses, and the oi are not used here with the frequency you might expect. The primary greenkeepers of the old course are currently staring at you. Sheep, hundreds of them. They are scattered across the fairways, heads down, chewing with a singular, boring determination. This is the reality of Linkskill land. It is common land. It belongs to the people, which means it belongs to the graziers. The sheep keep the grass short. They also fertilise it. But they are terrible landscape architects. They eat where they want, they sleep where they want, and they leave hazards that are not listed on the scorecard. Old Tom stops at what you assume is a green. Doesn't look much different from the fairway, except the grass is slightly shorter and there are fewer weeds. He points to a patch of ground that has been chewed down to the dirt. "Rabbits scrape," he says. The wind tears the words away, but you know what he means. This is your war. The rabbits of St. Andrews are industrious, numerous and annoying. They dig shallow holes in the turf to get at the roots or just to annoy you personally. If a ball rolls into one, the player is essentially stuck. There is no ground under repair rule that will save them easily. You kneel down, the ground is wet, the dampness soaks instantly through the knees of your tweed trousers, a cold sensation that spreads up your thighs. You reach into your bucket. The sand is heavy, wet and freezing. It feels like gritty slush. You grab a handful and pack it into the rabbit hole. You have to smooth it over, pressing it down with the flat of your hand so it's level with the surrounding turf. It is gritty, mindless work. You fill one hole, you stand up. Your knees crack. You walk 10 feet, you find another hole, you kneel, you fill, you smooth, you stand. The sand gets everywhere. It is under your fingernails. It is in the creases of your palms. It has somehow worked its way inside your boots. When you wipe your nose with the back of your hand, you transfer sand to your face. You can feel the grit between your teeth. You are slowly becoming part of the beach. Old Tom is working nearby, but he is doing something more delicate. He is changing the hole. In the 19th century, this isn't done with a standardised, surgically sharp hole cutter that pops out a perfect cylinder of earth. Tom is using a knife and a trowel. He cuts a circle in the turf, eyeballing the diameter. He pries up the sod carefully. Then he scoops out the earth underneath. There are no plastic cup liners. There is no metal rim. The hole is just a hole in the dirt. To keep the sides from collapsing, Tom takes a handful of the wet, clay-like mud from the bottom and smears it around the inside rim, hardening it. It is pottery class meets landscaping. He works with the focus of a surgeon, his weathered hands moving with surprising tenderness. He knows that later today, money will change hands based on whether a ball drops into this dark little cavern or lips out. Once the new hole is cut, he takes the plug of grass from the new hole and places it into the old hole, stomping it down to seal the earth. "Sand!" he barks. You hurry over with your bucket. You sprinkle sand over the seam of the old hole to help the grass knit back together. "Oh, good," he mutters. "This is the highest praise you will receive all month." You move to the next hole. The old course is a loop out and back. As you walk outward, away from the town, the landscape becomes wilder. The dunes on your right, separating the course from the beach, rise up like jagged teeth. They are covered in long, whip-like grasses that hiss in the wind. To your left, the gorse bushes are blooming a vibrant, deceptive yellow. Gorse is beautiful, but it is essentially a shrub made of needles and spite. If you lose a ball in there, you don't get it back without losing a pint of blood. You realise as you walk that there is no boundary between in bounds and out of bounds here. The course just sort of ends. It fades into the heather or the beach or the River Eden. It is a part of the environment, not an imposition upon it. The physical labour begins to take its toll. The bucket is getting lighter as you use the sand, but your shoulder is aching from the weight. The cold is a constant nagging presence. It's not just the air temperature, it's the dampness. The mist has soaked into your wool jacket. You smell like a wet dog. The wool itches your neck. You adjust your cap, pulling it lower to shield your eyes from the stinging wind. Occasionally you have to stop to perform another vital task, scaling the cowpats or sheep droppings. Since the animals roam freely, the greens are often littered with dung. You use a flat piece of wood or your boot to flick them away. It is not glamorous, it is not noble, it is poop management. You are the custodian of a field that happens to be famous. As you reach the far end of the course near the Eden estuary, the isolation hits you. You are miles from the town now. There is no one here but you, old Tom, and the birds. The curlews cry out with their mournful bubbling call. The waves crash against the sand. It feels desolate. The sky is vast and indifferent. You look at old Tom. He is standing on the high ground of a teeing area, looking back toward the town. He isn't working for a moment. He's just watching. The wind whips his beard, but he stands like a statue carved from the local stone. You wonder what he sees. Does he see the history he's making? Or does he just see the work that's left to do? He turns to you. Tee boxes need sand. Right, the tee boxes. In this era, you don't tee the ball up on a little wooden peg. Wooden tees won't become popular for another 60 years. To tee the ball up, a player takes a pinch of wet sand from a box, makes a little pyramid on the ground and places the ball on top of it. Your job is to ensure the sandboxes at each teeing ground are full. This means you have to trudge over to the dunes, dig up fresh sand, carry it back and dump it into the wooden boxes. It is heavy, repetitive lifting. Your lower back begins to throb. Your hamstrings burn, the sand in the dunes is dry and fine, and the wind blows it into your face every time you dump a shovel load. You are thirsty, but you didn't bring water. You just have to wait. The concept of hydration as a constant necessity hasn't caught on yet. You just work until you stop. As the morning wears on, the light changes. The grey sky brightens to a piercing, milky white. The sun is trying to break through, but it's weak. It offers light, but no heat. The shadows of the dunes sharpen, stretching long and dark across the fairways. You start to see movement back towards the town. Small, dark figures appearing against the grey stone of the clubhouse. The golfers are waking up. The caddies are gathering. The peace of the morning is about to be broken. Old Tom sees them too. He checks his pocket watch, a heavy silver thing attached to a chain. He snaps it shut. "Tide's out," he says, which seems irrelevant to you, but to him it means something about the moisture in the turf or the direction of the wind. Everything's connected here. He gestures for you to follow him back towards the first tee. The walk back feels longer. Your boots feel heavier, clogged with mud and sand. Your stomach gives a hollow rumble, loud enough to be heard over the wind, but Tom ignores it. As you approach the first tee, you see the preparations beginning. It's not a formal tournament setup with grandstands and ropes. It's rougher. It's rawer. A group of men are standing around, smoking pipes, their laughter sharp and raucous in the cold air. They are bundled in thick coats, looking more like longshoremen than athletes. These are the caddies, and they are a different breed entirely. They aren't the polite teenagers in white jumpsuits you see on TV. These are grown men, hard-bitten, smelling of stale whiskey and bad decisions. They are the Caddy clan of St. Andrews, a notorious group known for their sharp tongues, their gambling and their fierce loyalty to their players. They ignore you as you walk past. You are just the apprentice. You are the sandboy. You are invisible. Old Tom, however, commands their attention. As he approaches, the chatter dies down. They nod to him. "Morning, Tom." Tom. It is a mark of respect. He is the grand old man. He is the one who keeps the course playable so they can earn their shillings. You set your bucket down near the shop. Your hands are stiff, frozen into a claw shape. You try to flex your fingers, and it hurts. You look at your palms. They are red and raw, the skin abraded by the wet sand and the wooden handle. But there is no time to rest. The first match of the day is about to go off. A couple of gentlemen have emerged from the club. They are wearing knickerbockers and tweed jackets, flat caps pulled low. They look wealthy, well-fed, and ready to be humbled by the game. Old Tom goes into the shop and comes out with a handful of clubs, long-nosed woods, and heavy irons. He hands a set to a caddy. Then he looks at you. "For caddy," he says. "This is your new role. You aren't carrying the bag, you are the spotter. Because golf balls are expensive and the rough here is thick enough to hide a small horse, your job is to run ahead of the players, stand in the distance, and watch where the ball lands. You have to run. Now." You jog out onto the fairway, your heavy boots thudding against the turf. You have to get far enough out to see the landing zone, but not so far that you get hit. You position yourself about 150 yards away, standing to the side in the rough. You turn back to face the tee. The distance makes the players look like toy soldiers. You see the swing a quick, jerky motion compared to modern standards. You see the puff of sand as the club strikes the ball, and then you wait. The ball is a small dark speck against a dark grey sky. It is almost impossible to track. You squint, eyes streaming in the wind, desperate to pick up the flight. If you lose the ball, you cost the gentleman money. If you cost the gentleman money, Old Tom hears about it. If Old Tom hears about it, you are back to boiling gutta-percha for the rest of your life. There it is, a white streak. It bounces hard on the frozen fairway thwack and rolls, and rolls, and rolls. It dodges a sheep, skims past a rabbit hole you just filled, and comes to rest on a patch of bare dirt. You raise your hand to signal the position. You stand there, shivering, waiting for them to walk to you. This is the game. It is slow, it is cold, it is a battle against the land itself, and you are right in the middle of it, a human marker post on the edge of the world. As the players approach, you can hear their conversation. They aren't talking about business or politics. They are complaining about the lie. They are arguing about the wind. They are betting on the shot. "A shilling says you don't clear the bunker," one says. "Done," says the other. The man addresses the ball. He swings. He tops it. The ball dribbles 20 yards into a patch of heather. The caddy sighs, a sound of deep existential fatigue. You know exactly how he feels. You jog forward and again, deeper into the course, moving ahead to the next landing zone. The wind picks up. A light rain begins to fall, horizontal needles of ice that prick your skin. You pull your collar up. You keep running. The day has barely begun, and you are already exhausted. But as you look back at the town, sitting grey and stoic on the horizon, and the vast expanse of dunes stretching out before you, You feel a strange, grim satisfaction. You are part of the landscape now. You're part of the machine, and the machine is hungry for more golf. As the round progresses, you realise that golf in the 1860s is less of a gentleman's leisure activity and more of a chaotic, open-air argument with geography. You are standing knee-deep in a patch of sea lime grass on the edge of the fifth hole, shivering uncontrollably, watching a man in a tweed coat try to negotiate with a bush. This is the essence of the game here. There are no manicured edges. There is no distinction between the fairway and the wild. The course is just a strip of land that old Tom has politely asked the rabbits to vacate, and the rabbits have politely declined. Your job as a four-caddy has settled into a rhythm of terrified boredom. You run ahead, you stand, you wait. You pray the ball doesn't hit you, you signal, you run again. It sounds simple, but the variables are endless. The wind is currently blowing so hard that if a player hits the ball too high, it actually comes backward. You watch a long spoon, a wooden club with a loft similar to a modern three-wood striker ball that climbs into the grey sky, stalls like a confused bird, and drops nearly vertically into a pot bunker that is so deep it looks like a crater from a small meteor impact. The players arrive at the bunker. This is where the class divide of Victorian Scotland becomes a spectator sport. The gentleman player stands on the edge looking down into the sandy abyss with an expression of polite horror. He is wearing boots that cost more than your father made in his entire life. He is holding a club that is a piece of art, and he is about to humiliate himself. His caddy, a man known only as Trappy, probably because he spends half his life in sand traps, or perhaps because he traps unsuspecting tourists into hiring him, hands him a heavy iron. Trappy smells of stale pipe smoke and raw onions. He is wearing 3 coats, none of which button correctly. He doesn't offer encouragement. He just grunts and spits on the turf. "Hit it hard, sir, and don't break your wrists." The gentleman climbs down. The bunker is not raked. It is full of footprints, dog paw prints, and the grooves left by the wind. The ball is sitting in a heel print left by the previous victim. In the modern game, you might get relief. Here the rules are simple: play it as it lies or go home. The gentleman swings. There is a dull thud as the iron hits the wet sand. A cloud of grit explodes into the air, blowing directly back into his face. The ball moves 6 inches. "Bad luck," Trappy says with zero sincerity. The gentleman swings again. Thud. The ball pops up, hits the sod face of the bunker, and rolls back down to exactly where it started. The gentleman's face is turning a shade of purple that matches the heather on the distant hills. You stand at a safe distance, wiping your nose on your sleeve, witnessing the timeless tradition of a golfer losing his mind. Finally, on the 4th attempt, the ball flies out. The gentleman scrambles out of the pit, panting, covered in sand. He looks less like a lord of the realm and more like a man who's been wrestling a badger. He doesn't look happy. He looks defeated. And yet he walks to the next tee with a grim determination. This is the addiction. The suffering is the point. As they move to the next teeing ground, you rush over to the sandbox. The tee is a concept, not an object. You scoop a handful of wet, freezing sand from the wooden box. You kneel at the spot the gentleman points to. You form a little pyramid, patting it into shape with your numb red fingers. You have to get the height just right. Too high and he skied it. Too low and he tops it. And it's your fault either way. He places the gutta-percha ball on top of your sand sculpture. The ball is dark, scarred from its journey, and hard as rock. You scurry away before he swings. The sound of the impact is distinct. It's not the metallic ping of the 21st century titanium. It's a sharp wooden clack. It sounds like 2 snooker balls hitting each other. The shaft of the club twists. Hickory is wood. It's organic. It has torque. If you hit it off the toe, the gear effect is violent. You can see the vibration travel up the gentleman's arms. It stings. In the cold air, a thin shot feels like grabbing an electric fence. They play on. You run on. The course is getting crowded now. St Andrews is a public links. It cuts across public land. This means the fairways are not exclusive. People are walking their dogs. Women are carrying baskets of laundry across the 1st and 18th fairways to get to the beach. It is a shared space, and it is dangerous. The layout of the old course is a loop, but the fairways are massive double greens and shared landing areas. Players are coming out and players are coming in. Balls are flying in opposite directions, crossing paths like silent invisible missiles. There is no shouting of 4. or at least not often enough. Usually the warning comes too late. You hear a shout, you duck, and a ball whizzes past your ear with the velocity of a bullet. If you get hit by a gutty ball, it doesn't just bruise, it breaks bone. It knocks you unconscious. You have seen caddies drop like sacks of potatoes, only to be dragged to the side, splashed with water, and told to walk it off. You keep your head on a swivel. You're watching your group, but you're also watching the group coming the other way. You're watching the sky. You're watching the sheep. It is a high-stress environment disguised as a walk in the park. By the time you reach the far end of the course, the loop, the weather decides to remind you where you are. The mist turns into a steady driving rain. It is cold rain. It soaks through your tweed jacket in minutes. The wool becomes heavy and smells even stronger of wet animal. Your trousers cling to your legs. The gentlemen open umbrellas, but the wind turns them inside out instantly. They abandon them. They just trudge on, heads down. The caddies pull their collars up. No one speaks. The banter is gone. The betting is suspended. It is just a march of survival. You look at the ball on the green. The green is not putting surface smooth. It is shaggy by modern standards. It is slow. The rain has made it even slower. The gentleman has to hit a putt that looks like a full swing just to get the ball to the hole. The ball bobbles over the worm casts and wet patches. It misses. He picks it up. "Gimme," he mutters, though it was a 4-footer. Old Tom is somewhere out here too. You spot him 2 holes over, working. He isn't playing. He's fixing a bank that has collapsed near the Eden estuary. He is knee-deep in mud, wrestling with a piece of sod. He looks up as your group passes, raising a hand in a silent salute. He doesn't stop working. He's the guardian of this place, and this rain is just another tenant he has to deal with. As you head back in, the wind is at your back, pushing you towards the town. The spires of St. Andrew's loom in the distance, dark silhouettes against the weeping sky. The anticipation of warmth keeps you moving. Your feet are numb blocks of ice inside your boots. You can't feel your toes. You just trust that they are still there because you haven't fallen over yet. The final hole, the 18th, is a relief. The ground flattens out. The town surrounds the green. There are people watching from the fence locals, shopkeepers, other caddies. They analyse the swings. They critique the approach shots. "He's hooked it," a voice says from the fence as your gentleman sends a ball sailing towards the road. "Aye, straight into the hotel," another laughs. The ball hits the wall of a building with a loud crack and bounces back into play. This is rub of the green. The gentleman doesn't apologise. He plays his next shot from the cobblestones of the road. Sparks fly as his iron hits the stone. He chips it onto the green. He 2-putts. The round is over. They shake hands. The transaction happens. The gentleman reaches into his pocket and hands coins to the caddy. A few shillings. Maybe a tip if he won his bet. The caddy tips his cap. The first sign of deference he's shown all day. "Thank you, sir. Good game." "Sir?" The gentleman turns to you. He looks at you, the shivering mud-splattered boy who built his tees and found his ball in the gorse. He reaches into his pocket again. He hands you a 6pence. "Here, lad. Buy yourself some warmth. It's not a fortune. It's barely enough for a meal, but you clutch it in your frozen hand like it's a gold nugget." The gentlemen retreat into the clubhouse, the Royal and Ancient. You cannot go there. That is a fortress of warmth, leather armchairs and brandy. You are not a member. You are the help. The door closes, shutting out the wind and shutting you out. You stand there for a moment, the rain dripping off the brim of your cap. The adrenaline of the round fades, leaving only the exhaustion. Your back aches from bending over sandboxes. Your legs burn from the sand dunes. You're hungry, but the day isn't over. The caddies are heading to the pub. You are heading back to the shop. There are clubs to be cleaned. There are grips to be rewrapped, and old Tom will be expecting you to sweep the floor. As you turn to walk back to the workshop, you hear a commotion near the first. It's tea. A crowd is gathering. It's different from the usual group of loafers. There is an energy to it, a buzz. Even the rain seems to be ignored. You look over. A young man is stepping onto the tee. He is dressed differently, more stylishly, perhaps a bit more flamboyantly than the grey young men you just watched. He has a bonnet pulled low over his eyes and a powerful, broad-shouldered build. He is swinging a club with a speed and violence that seems impossible. The crowd parts for him. They whisper his name. It's not old Tom, it's the other one. The one who is changing everything. You stop, you forget the cold for a second. You have to watch this. Because even in 1867, you know you are looking at the first superstar the game has ever seen. Young Tom is about to drive. You are standing on the edge of the first tee, your boots sinking into the mud, watching a young man who is about to change the physics of the game. This is Tommy, young Tom Morris. To you in 1867, he is simply the boss's son. But he's also something else entirely. He's the first person you have ever seen who plays golf not as a leisurely pastime or a stubborn battle against nature, but as an act of pure aggression. Old Tom, your master, plays with a rhythmic sweeping grace. His swing is long, slow and deliberative, like the turning of a water wheel. Young Tom is different to that. He addresses the ball with a kind of restless energy. He twitches. He waggles the club with intent, and when he swings, it is violent. You watch him coil. His bonnet, the Balmoral cap, nearly flies off his head. He unleashes the club with a snap that sounds like a pistol shot. Crack! The crowd gasped. Not polite applause, a gasp, because the ball didn't just fly, it vanished. It took off on a trajectory that seemed to defy the heavy, damp air of the afternoon. It carried the burn, cleared the swarm of sheep grazing on the fairway, and landed with a defiant thud far beyond where the gentleman you caddied for earlier had even dreamed of reaching. This is the birth of the power game, and standing there shivering in your damp wool, you're witnessing the moment golf stops being a game of ground management and starts being a game of aerial bombardment. The crowd surges forward. These aren't just fans, they are investors. In this era, professional golf is fueled almost entirely by betting. The men surrounding the tee shop keepers, fishermen, visiting aristocrats have money riding on every shot. They don't care about the beauty of the swing, they care about the result. They follow Tommy like a school of fish, a moving mass of tweed and shouting, "You stay back." You are the apprentice. You have seen him hit balls 1,000 times in the shop, testing the clubs you spent hours polishing. You know that he breaks shafts constantly because he swings so hard. You know that he can spin a ball out of a rut like a magician. But seeing him out here in the failing light with the adoration of the town heaped upon his broad shoulders feels different. But there is a heaviness here too, a shadow that the history books will talk about, but which you only feel as a vague sense of unease. You look at him, young, strong, invincible. He's only in his late teens. He has the world at his feet. He will win the Open Championship 4 times in a row. He will retire the championship belt because no one else is good enough to take it from him. Yet, as you watch him laughing with a caddy, brushing the hair from his eyes, you can't know that his time is terrifyingly short. You can't know that in a few years, on a freezing Christmas day not unlike today, he will die of a broken heart or a pulmonary hemorrhage or head age, depending on who you believe, just months after his wife and newborn child pass away. You're looking at a ghost who hasn't died yet. The tragedy of the Morris family is woven into the very fog that is currently rolling off the sea, wrapping around the legs of the spectators. But for now, he is alive, he is loud, and he is winning. The match ends as the sun dips below the horizon, turning the sky a bruised purple. The cold, which had been a dull ache, now sharpens into a bite. The adrenaline of the spectacle fades, and you are reminded that you are hungry, thirsty, and your feet are wet. The crowd begins to disperse, but they aren't going home. They are migrating. Like a herd seeking water, the caddies, the players, and the hangers-on are moving towards the town's true centres of gravity, the taverns. You follow. You are not a gentleman, so you do not go to the Union Club or the R&A. You head for the places where the sawdust is fresh and the ale is cheap. You might head to the Golf Hotel, or perhaps a smaller, nameless establishment tucked into a side street, identified only by the noise spilling out of the door. Entering a Victorian tavern is a physical assault on the senses. You push open the heavy wooden door and you are hit by a wall of heat. It is a humid, suffocating heat generated by a roaring coal fire, and 50 bodies packed into a room designed for 20. Then comes the smell. If you thought the shop smelled distinct, the tavern is a symphony of odours. It smells of stale beer, of course, a sour, yeasty scent that seems to permeate the wood of the tables. It smells of wet wool as dozens of damp coats begin to dry in the heat, releasing the stench of wet sheep and unwashed humanity. It smells of pipe smoke, a thick blue fog that hangs at eye level, stinging your throat. And underneath it all, the faint, sweet rot smell of the straw on the floor, which catches the spills, the spit, and the mud from the boots. You squeeze your way in. There is no orderly queue. You have to elbow your way to the bar. The noise is deafening. It is a roar of male voices, shouting, laughing, arguing. The accent is thick, a rapid-fire Scots that to an outsider would sound like a different language entirely. "Pinter heavy," someone shouts. "Nay, he touched the sand," another argues, slamming a fist on a table. You find a small space at the end of a bench and collapse onto it. The wood is hard and polished smooth by the backsides of 1,000 other exhausted labourers. You order a drink. You might get a whiskey rough clear spirit that burns all the way down and settles in your stomach like a hot coal. Or more likely, since you are young and broke, you get a ginger beer or a small ale. Old Tom himself is known to abstain from the hard stuff, preferring ginger beer, a habit that makes him an anomaly in this room of hardened drinkers. You take a sip. It's room temperature, foaming and gritty. It tastes of yeast and spice. It washes the dust of the links from your throat. Now, food. You're starving. But this is not a gastropub. There are no truffle fries. There is no fusion cuisine. The menu is short, unwritten, and brown. You might get a bridie, a meat pastry that is essentially a dense pocket of minced beef and onions wrapped in suet crust. It is heavy. It sits in your hand like a brick. When you bite into it, hot grease squirts out. It is salty, fatty, and utterly delicious because you have burned 4,000 calories carrying sand buckets. Or perhaps you get a bowl of Cullen skink, if you're lucky. A thick soup made of smoked haddock, potatoes and onions. It's milky, fishy and warming. You eat it with a chunk of bread that is dark, dense and slightly stale, using it to wipe the bowl clean. As you eat, you listen. The tavern is the internet of the 1860s. This is where the news travels, but the news isn't about wars or politics. It's about the links. Did you see the lie he had on the 14th? The wind changed on the back nine, cost me a shilling. Young Tom is playing the Park Brothers next week. Put your money down now. Gambling is the lifeblood of this room. Coins are changing hands everywhere. Silver shillings, copper pennies. The caddies, who earn a pittance, are gambling with a recklessness that borders on insanity. They bet on matches. They bet on the weather. They bet on how long it will take a fly to walk across the bobble. It is a culture of high stakes and low incomes. You see the caddies in the corner. They are a rough crew. Some are already drunk, singing songs that are definitely not PG-13. These are men who live hard lives. They carry clubs until their backs give out, then they drink until their livers give out. They are the ignorant, drunken caddies that the polite guidebooks warn tourists about, but right now they are the kings of this castle. You look at your hands. The blisters from the shovel are throbbing. The cut you got from the gutta-percha mould is stinging from the salt in the food. Your eyes are heavy. The heat of the room is making you drowsy. The smoke is lulling you into a trance. For a moment you forget the cold outside. You forget the freezing dormitory waiting for you. You forget the 5 a.m. wake-up call. You are just here, part of the tribe. You are a lynx creature. You belong to the old grey toon. But the night is moving on. The bell for last orders hasn't rung yet, but the mood is shifting. The arguments are getting louder. A scuffle breaks out near the door, 2 caddies shoving each other over a dispute about a sixpence. A glass shatters. The landlord roars something unintelligible and vaults the bar. It's time to come. You finish your drink. You wipe the crumbs of the pastry from your mouth. You stand up and your legs protest. The stiffness has set in. You push your way back through the crowd, which seems to have doubled in density. The wall of noise follows you to the door. You grasp the iron handle, cold and greasy. You step out. The silence hits you harder than the noise did. The door swings shut behind you, cutting off the light and the warmth instantly. You're back in the dark. The street is empty now. The fog has thickened. The gas lamps, if there are any nearby, are just pale yellow halos in the mist. The cold clamps down on you immediately, finding the sweat you worked up inside the tavern and turning it to ice against your skin. The contrast is jarring. 1 minute you are in the centre of humanity, surrounded by life, vice and heat. Now you're alone in a stone town on the edge of the world. You start the walk back to your lodgings. The sound of your boots on the cobblestones is the only thing you hear. Click, clack, click, clack. You pass the shop again. It is dark. The fire has died down. The tools are silent. The balls you made this morning are sitting on the rack, hardening. waiting to be lost in the gorse tomorrow. As you walk, your mind wanders. You think about the game. Why do we do it? Why do these men spend fortunes to hit a ball into a hole? Why do you break your back to rake sand for them? It seems absurd. It is absurd, and yet there is something about it. The way the ball flies, the way the turf fills under your feet, the way the wind scours your soul clean. In this harsh grey world where life is short and work is brutal, the game offers a strange kind of purpose. It is a battle you can see. It is a struggle with a beginning and an end. You turn the corner towards your street. The wind howls down the alleyway, pushing you forward. You are so tired you can barely keep your eyes open. But you have one more section of the journey left. The night is not over, and the reflection that comes with the darkness is just beginning. The walk back to your lodgings is a journey through a town that has effectively shut down for the night. In the 21st century, streetlights, cars, and the glow of smartphones keep the world in a state of perpetual twilight. In 1867, St. Andrews, when the sun goes down, the world ends. The darkness here is physical. It has weight. The gas lamps are few and far between, sputtering in the wind, casting pools of sickly yellow light that barely reach the centre of the street. You walk in and out of the shadows, your boots striking the cobblestones with a rhythm that echoes off the stone facades of the houses. Clack, clack, clack. It is the soundtrack of the working man returning to his cell. You turn down a narrow wynd, a shortcut that takes you past the ruins of the St. Andrew's Cathedral. In the daylight it is the tourist attraction, a majestic skeleton of stone. At night, under the pale, watery light of a moon struggling through the clouds, it is formidable. The jagged spires pierce the sky like broken fingers. The graves in the churchyard are swallowed by the gloom. You pause for a moment, leaning against a cold stone wall to catch your breath. The alcohol from the tavern has worn off, leaving behind a dull fatigue and a thirst. You look at the ruins. This was once the centre of religious power in Scotland. Now it is just rocks. It strikes you, in your exhausted state, that golf is the new religion here. The pilgrims don't come for the saints anymore. They come for the sand. They come to be punished by the old course, to confess their sins in bunkers, and to seek redemption on the 18th green. And you are the monk. You are the one who sweeps the temple, who prepares the altar, who ensures the rituals can continue. You push off the wall and keep walking. The wind has shifted. It is coming off the bay now, carrying the smell of low tide-rotting kelp, wet sand and salt. It's a clean smell, cold and sharp, scrubbing the scent of the tavern from your clothes. You reach your building. It looks exactly as it did this morning. Dark, uninviting and stoic. You push the heavy door open. It groans on its iron hinges, a sound you know better than your own mother's voice. You step into the hallway. It is pitch black. You have to navigate by memory, counting the steps. 1, 2, 3. Avoid the loose board on the 4th. 5, 6. You reach your room. You fumble for the latch, your fingers numb and clumsy. The door swings open, and you are greeted by the same air you left 12 hours ago. It is still cold, it is still damp, but now it smells faintly of you, of the sleep you left behind. You strike a match. The flare of phosphorus is blinding for a second. You light the small tallow candle by your bedside. The flame catches, wavering in the draught, illuminating the small sad space. The shadows dance on the walls. Now begins the reverse ritual of the morning. You sit on the edge of the bed. The straw mattress crunches under your weight. You reach down to untie your boots. This is the hardest part of the day. The leather stiffened as it dried. The laces are wet knots. You pick at them with your fingernails, cursing softly. Finally, the left boot comes off. The relief is instantaneous. It's almost a spiritual experience. Your foot, compressed and frozen all day, throbs as the blood rushes back in. You peel off the damp wool sock. Your skin is white, wrinkled like a prune, and impressed with the pattern of the knitting. You rub your arch, wincing at the soreness. Then the right boot. Thud. It hits the floor. You are free. You stand up to strip off the layers. The heavy jacket, stiff with dried mud on the cuffs. The waistcoat. The shirt, which clings to your back. You leave the undershirt on. It's too cold to sleep without it. You hang your clothes on a wooden peg. They will not dry by morning. You will put them on damp again tomorrow. That's just how it is. Dampness is your second skin. You don't brush your teeth. Toothbrushes exist. but they are hog bristles on a bone handle, and you probably don't have one. You might rinse your mouth with a little water from the pitcher, spitting into the chamber pot. The glamour of the era is truly overwhelming. You blow out the candle. The darkness rushes back in, absolute and total. You lie down. The mattress is lumpy. The straw pokes through the thin fabric, ticking, scratching your leg. But your body is so heavy, so completely drained of energy, that the bed feels like a cloud. You pull the scratchy wool blanket up to your chin. You curl into a ball, trapping your body heat, trying to create a small pocket of warmth in the freezing void. Your eyes close, but your mind doesn't shut off immediately. It lingers on the day. You see the images flashing behind your eyelids like a magic lantern show. You see the steam rising from the gutta-percha pot. You feel the heat of the iron mould. You see the endless undulating green of the links. You see the sheep staring at you with their rectangular pupils. You see the gentleman's club shattering into splinters. You see young Tom's ball disappearing into the grey sky. And you think about old Tom. He's probably asleep now too. Or maybe he's sitting by his bishop reading the Bible, thinking about the course. He loves that land. He doesn't just work on it, he listens to it. He knows that the course is alive. He knows that the bunkers move, that the dunes shift, that the grass lives and dies. He knows that we are just temporary visitors. The golfers, the caddies, the greenkeepers. We are just ghosts passing through. The land remains. The sand you shoveled today was there 1,000 years ago, and it will be there 1,000 years from now. The wind that burned your face has been blowing since the Ice Age. There is a strange comfort in that. You are small. Your problems, your sore back, your wet feet, your lack of money are insignificant against the scale of the old course. You are part of a long, unbroken chain of people who have walked those links. You have done your part. You have kept the game alive for one more day. The sound of the sea outside the window seems to get louder as the house settles. Rushing in, pulling back, rushing in, pulling back. It is a rhythmic, hypnotic lullaby. Your breathing slows down to match it. The cold stops being a sensation and becomes just a state of being. The heaviness in your limbs turns into a deep sinking relaxation. The tightness in your shoulders releases. You are drifting now. The images of the day are fading. The smell of the workshop, the rubber, the wood, the smoke fades into the smell of the salt air. Tomorrow the bell will ring again, the sun will struggle to rise. The kettle will boil, the gutta-percha will soften, the wind will blow, the gentleman will complain, and you will do it all again. But that is tomorrow. Tonight, there is no sand to carry, there are no holes to cut, there are no bets to settle. Tonight, there is only the dark, the warmth of the blanket, and the sleep that you have earned. So, sleep well. The old course will be waiting for you. Good night.